This is Colleen Duffy of Devil Doll, and you are listening to the one and only US Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to US Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. I'm Tom Guild. Nowhere in the world celebrates modernism better than Modernism Week in Palm Springs, California. Every February, they have this Architecture and Design Festival, which used to only be a week, but lately it's been supersized to last 11 days. US Modernist Radio is there again this year, interviewing nearly all of Modernism Week's keynote speakers, plus special guests at the US Modernist Compound, which is within the very cool confines of the Hotel Skylark. Modernism Week attracts reporters and photographers from all over the world. They make the flight into Palm Springs or LA to cover the architecture, the art, the lectures, the occasional or often celebrity, and most of all, the lifestyle that we immerse ourselves into all 11 days. Plus, there's the huge impact of Modernism Week on the economy, making it rain on those Palm Springs butterfly roofs. Today, George Smart talks with Desert Sun business reporter Melissa Daniels, and later he visits with architecture photographer Elizabeth Daniels and Curbed reporter Pauline O'Connor, just after a delicious breakfast of frittatas, waffles, granola, and bacon at the US Modernist Compound.
Oh man, I'm going through withdrawal.
I know. Speaking of delicious, I was really stoked to follow George and the US Modernist crowd out to Palm Springs again this year. And not only because of that great mid-century modernism that you see everywhere, I also happen to have a chocolate problem. You see, I'm a fan of See's Candies. It's a mostly West Coast chocolatier with stores all over California and the other left coast states. But back east, here in North Carolina, you have to mail order See's Candy, and it's just not the same. But Palm Springs has an actual brick-and-mortar See's Candy store, and you can go in.
Really?
They do. Haven't you wondered where I went afternoon every year we've been there and come back with boxes? You can pick out the assortment you want. You don't have to go with their pre-made assortments. It's heaven. And another thing, they like to hand out free samples. Mail order doesn't do that.
Oh, wow.
No matter how nicely I ask my letter carrier, he won't give me free samples.
It really is an incredible time. If you're into mid-century modern, Modernism Week is an amazing all-you-can-view festival of mid-century architecture, lectures, martinis, art galleries, shopping, nonprofit benefit events, architecture documentary premieres, and amazing parties at incredible houses.
And really good chocolates.
Good chocolates, brilliantly curated house tours and architecture exhibits, and much more. It takes a lot to put this together. Hundreds, if not thousands, maybe 1,000 volunteers that work with Modernism Week. The entire community pulls together in the arts and architecture and volunteer and nonprofit worlds to manage literally hundreds of events that go on during the course of the week. The whole staff and volunteers out there are amazing, as you'll see when you come with us. In February 2021, if you'd like to stay with us at the US Modernist Compound, email me, George, at usmodernist.org. US Modernist Radio is underwritten by Nichiha.com/USModernist and by Modernist Realtor Angela Roll.
In her ongoing imaginary life, modernist realtor Angela Roll supported herself from the age of 12 through black market carpentry and off-the-books house flipping, roaming the streets of Los Angeles with a nail gun and a Home Depot gift card of questionable origin. She rose to fame as a modernist renovator while keeping a 4.2 average and dating Jordan Catalano on the side.
My so-called life.
After high school graduation following a wild night involving goat cheese, Cristal, an inflatable kiddie pool, Sunset Boulevard, and a SWAT team, Angela was recruited to study architecture at SCI-Arc on a full boat scholarship. Amazingly, she declined and instead followed a different Catalano, architect Eduardo, into Boston. After studying at MIT, spending years in nutrient and sleep-deprived architecture studios, tortured with balsa wood and styrofoam, rarely seeing the light of day, she moved to North Carolina and became one of the top modernist real estate agents. With specialized design training and her trusty nail gun, she advises buyers and sellers of modernist houses on everything from appropriate pricing to how to talk to a SWAT team.
Very useful.
Yeah, one member at a time. Angela Roll is your special agent. Reach her at angelaroll.com. That's ROEHL or 919-995-0550.
Thank you, Tom. Melissa Daniels is the business reporter for the Desert Sun in Palm Springs. She previously reported on politics and government for the Associated Press, Law 360, and the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. She also wrote for Forbes. She's a huge fan of our U.S. Modernist archives, and we're huge fans of her modernism coverage in Palm Springs. One special treat was walking around with her at the Albert Frey House. For me, one of the most perfect examples of small mid-century modernism, perched up high on the mountain above the Palm Springs Museum of Art. And it's only open during Modernism Week for the public.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel very privileged.
You have to go at the right time. Let's go now poolside to our interview with Melissa at the U.S. Modernist compound.
Melissa.
Hi, George.
Hi there. So, like Khalil Gibran, speak to me of love songs.
We're starting there.
We're starting there.
Oh, my goodness. So it's 2008. I'm interning at Jazz Times magazine in Silver Spring, Maryland, living in Georgetown, just being an unpaid intern and a waitress who wants to be a music and culture writer more than anything in the world.
Yeah.
And I started this blog called Learning Love Songs because I always liked writing about music, but I didn't want to do straight album reviews. I didn't want to just write about what was new and happening. So I thought I would tailor all my posts and thoughts in the blog around songs that really spoke to me. You know, when sometimes you're out and about in the world and either on the radio or in the supermarket, you'll hear a song that's the perfect song for you to hear in that moment. And I kind of tailored everything around that concept. So I would write about whatever song I was really just feeling that day or feeling that week. And, 90% of pop songs are love songs, right? So
right.
That's something that kind of always was in the sphere, and it just struck, and I kept it up for, I think, 10 years.
Wow, that's a big commitment.
It was. For an unpaid commitment,
Yeah.
It was really a long time.
A lot of paid commitments don't last that long.
No. But it was an outlet for me to indulge in writing about music and thinking about music. My dad was a musician, and my mom is super into music, and it was definitely something that was raised around when I was growing up. I have a lot of musicians in my family, people who are professional musicians or just very excellent hobbyists. So it was always something that I felt really comfortable in that world, and I always felt really comfortable at shows and concerts and things like that. And I've just spent a lot of time in that scene when I'm in my youth. So it just
Yes,
became
you're
something
so
I did.
elderly now. It's just astonishing. You look great, though.
I know. Yeah. Sometimes I feel like I'm a lot older than I am. Moving to 8 cities in 10 years will age you in interesting ways.
Yes.
But yeah, so it was this hobby really that I did, and I have all these articles now, all these blog posts, and someday I want to do something with it. I feel like it would be a cool thing to pull together a collection, but I stopped it in 2018 because I was doing some reporting for the Associated Press at the time, and I just really needed to focus on my work and my work writing and really buckle down on that. So I did. And then last year I did a really weird departure, and I took the same Learning Love Songs brand, as they say, and I made it an Instagram account to post cover songs. Yeah. Which is a very similar concept of whatever song I can't get out of my head, I'll just learn to play and then post a minute cover of it. So that's my personal project. It has nothing to do with what I do in Palm Springs or the Desert Sun, but it's just my own fun, indulgent music, creative life.
So what makes for a really good love song? I mean, I know that if you've broken up with somebody or if you have heartache, you should not listen to country music because that will just twist the knife in your...
Oh, yeah. It
Yeah.
just murders you.
Murders you.
Yeah. Oh, I love it, though. I lean into it so hard. I mean, I'm definitely like a classic pop song structurist. Like, give me 2 verses, a chorus, a bridge. Like, I really like that. Like, I think Taylor Swift is brilliant. Controversial opinion. I could take her or leave her as a person, but as a songwriter, like, I think she's really onto something with the way she structures songs. I mean, her songs could be Billy Joel songs, you know what I mean? Like, the way that they're structured and the way that they're very measured. I like a good 4-chord progression and really just evocative lyrics. I mean, good writing is good writing is good writing. And just like in an essay or a novel, the stronger verbs you have, the better, and that kind of wordplay. And it's funny, too, when you look back at songs from, like, the 30s and 40s, that they still feel so relevant to how people experience today. Sometimes they're a little dated in some of the references and things like that. But if you think about the feeling and the emotion behind it, it's all very connected.
So did you ever go down the rabbit hole called Leonard Cohen?
I have not as much as I should. I definitely...
Because there's some definite love songs and feelings in there.
Yeah, well, I know what he's got that one, That's Where the Light Gets In. That song is stupid gorgeous. I love that one. But I don't know if... I can't speak to his canon, but maybe I should.
I think that should
up.
be a blog post, at least a 1 minute on some of his songs. Back in the 80s, my favorite artist, Jennifer Warnes, did an entire album of Cohen songs.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was just incredible. I think 86, 87 it came out, and it's still around on Amazon, of course, where everything lives.
Right.
And you pop that into the car or now stream it from somewhere, and you can just feel the situations that these songs evoke.
Totally.
And get a real empathy for what people are struggling with in the songs.
Right. And that's the timelessness of it, I think, is really something that I am interested in exploring and have kind of thought about. And especially, I think, when it comes to covers, because it's such an interesting way to adapt a work that already exists, but how do you put your own spin on it? Like how Jennifer would have interpreted those Leonard Cohen songs still came from her, even though it was his music, right?
Right.
So that's sort of a world unto itself of how someone adapts something to make it their own. Because you don't want to do a carbon copy, right? That doesn't need to exist. And if you're someone who's playing that song because you have something new to express, you want to make sure that's injected into what you create. So.
Well, speaking of timelessness, are there any good love songs about mid-century modernist houses?
I don't know. Should we make a playlist?
Yeah.
We should totally make that playlist.
I mean, Sinatra is always kind of the default that gets played in the background of houses, but, he wasn't talking so much about the architecture, although his songs do evoke the lifestyle of Palm Springs.
Absolutely. Like, I'm a big fan of car radio. Like, I'm such a car radio person. One of my favorite things about my job is I get to drive through the desert, listening to car radio going from, Indio to La Quinta to Palm Springs and all that. And the 107.3 Mod FM station in Palm Springs has been a game changer for me musically. Because there's so much like this. They just play mid-century music. And it suits the atmosphere so well. And it's also extremely calming. Like, it's very easy listening in a way where I'm not going to get, like, if I'm feeling anxious about a deadline or I'm trying to get from one meeting to another and it's a hectic day, that music from that era really has a calming effect on me.
Well, I have a Pandora channel, and I found this artist named Heather Rigdon.
Okay.
Who put out a couple of albums 15 years ago.
Cool.
And has disappeared from the scene. It turns out a lot of people launch jazz albums, particularly, try to make their big go. And, of course, music is an extraordinarily competitive business.
Yeah.
But you can still find them. They're still floating around.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm on that channel, I've now seen, like, what is similar to Heather Rigdon.
Right.
I've discovered Julie London.
Okay.
Very famous singer of the 50s and 60s. She was married to Jack Webb of Dragnet fame for a while. She was on the TV show Emergency. She played a nurse in the 70s. And she has album after album after album of the songs that I'm hearing played here in Palm Springs.
Oh, cool.
She's long gone now, but there are dozens and dozens of these singers and bands that once you discover them, and Pandora helps you link from one thing to another, and says that it's like Amazon. So I'll tell you a quick story because I've been telling this one all week. I have this pair of gold shoes, bright gold, with gold metal tips on the end, and what looks like gold alligator skin all folded around this. I mean, these shoes are boss.
Yeah, you show up in those shoes. Yeah.
People go, wow, those are some shoes. So these shoes came about because Amazon sent me one of those notes that said, "Hi, George, because you bought this cordless drill, you might like these shoes."
No, that was the connection.
And I said, click, bam, boom. I got shoes, and I was like, Amazon, you know me.
Isn't that scary sometimes?
Oh, yeah. But that was the time I was going, this is great. This is the one moment. I love the artificial intelligence engines.
Thank you for knowing exactly.
That have taken my cordless drill and turned it into a fabulous pair of party shoes.
Oh, my gosh. That's so good.
So how are people rediscovering? I mean, you're a great reporter in this, and I love your coverage of the architecture here.
Thank you.
And the culture. And it's been fun to get to know you and exchange, information about all this. But how are people rediscovering this even more now, just like I'm rediscovering songs?
Certainly, yeah. It's interesting here in Palm Springs because there's the folks who are the true diehards, like the locals who go to Modernism Week events and the folks who are involved with preservation. There's certainly a community where that is their thing.
Yeah.
And they, just inject a lot of energy into the scene in Palm Springs. But right now, we have kind of an influx of younger people coming from the coasts. And this is my own kind of just personal view of it, but you have a very Instagrammable destination here in Palm Springs, and mid-century modern design lends it extremely well to social media.
We used to call that great for photos, but now it's Instagrammable.
Yes, it is. It's great for photos. It's great on Instagram. And rack up those internet points. Just rack up the likes, right? And I think you have people who, when they see these photos of Palm Springs on Instagram or social media, they see that it's this beautiful, really curated destination in a lot of ways. So you have people who are coming here because they want to spend time somewhere beautiful and beautifully designed because it looks good on their Instagram.
Yeah.
And, you can say if that's a good, whether I'm not going to pass judgments or aspersions on that motivation because that's one of the reasons I moved here is because it's a beautiful place to live.
Yeah.
So I think you kind of have people maybe of the millennial generation who are experiencing mid-century design in Palm Springs because of just the way that it looks on social media and this vibe that they get. And they say, okay, that's the vibe that I want to sort of adopt. You have an interesting and I had this conversation with someone at a Modernism event this week, and we were just talking about the difference between style and design.
Okay.
Right. And it's something that I think is interesting when we think about the way people are decorating their Palm Springs hotels or restaurants, because there's certainly some places that, they feel very trendy. They feel very now. It's that sort of maybe a little more LA vibe, still very Instagrammable, but it's more of a style than design. And when I think about the places that are mid-century and I think about the folks who have made sure that those places are preserved and decorated accordingly, that's where the true design comes in. So there is kind of, I think, a stratification, of the types of places that are here.
Sure. What about outside of here? I mean, how are people outside of California starting to reconnect with Palm Springs? Because it seemed like the first wave was like 1993, 1995, when the Kaufman House was coming into being and Jim Moore was doing his thing with the steel houses. And then in 2002, or I guess 5 now, Modernism Week and the festival comes into place. Seems like we're going through another kind of era of rediscovery here.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, about 15 years ago, that was when Coachella, the Arts and Music Festival, really started to take off, when Modernism launched and hospitality had a really big boom. There was also, in the city of Palm Springs, an incentive program that would give developers a deal if they renovated their hotels and updated them. And that program now exists today, and they recently changed the standards so more boutique hotels and smaller room properties can take advantage of the incentive. And that, I think, has injected a little more activity as far as people taking some of these old mid-century buildings and doing something interesting with them for tourists. I think you have a lot of new stuff that's kind of happening. The Agua Caliente Band of Coya Indians is making the Spa and Cultural Center that's supposed to open this year right down there on Indian Canyon. See that round building come up? It's been so exciting to watch that because they recently just put up the stones on the side and they're starting to finish off the outside. And I think it's going to be really beautiful. I'm excited to get inside once I can.
Is it a hotel?
That, I honestly don't know if there's going to be rooms there, but it is more of a wellness spa as well as a cultural center and museum for the tribe. And then this year they're going to also be breaking ground on a 10,000-seat hockey arena.
Hockey in Palm Springs?
That is correct.
That's crazy.
It is wild times. It's going right above the casino, if you know where the Agua Caliente Casino is, just down a few blocks that way. And it's going to be mostly underground. It's got a flat roof.
So it'll be dug down into the earth.
Yeah, so, people won't have too much interruption of their mountain views. And they're going to have a minor league hockey team that's affiliated with the new Seattle NHL team. So we'll have hockey in Palm Springs, as well as a lot of concerts. They've partnered with Live Nation to get touring acts in and big names, and they're promising top-tier A-list entertainment. So I think as things like that develop and come to fruition, you're going to see this area become... It's already a destination for people in Southern California, but I think it'll increase the frequency with which people come out here because they'll have a reason to.
And I would assume the underground nature of this would make it easier to have, a frozen floor and keep it that way.
The logistics of this, I know. It's kind of fascinating.
I mean, how hot does it get here in the summer? Remind me.
Like 120 on your hottest
120.
days. Yeah. In July and August, you'll have some 120 days.
Holy cow.
It's a lot.
Well, we have a hockey team in Raleigh, North Carolina. And 20 years ago, that was a big joke, too. It's like Raleigh for hockey.
Right.
And now we have the Carolina Hurricanes, and they've gone to the Stanley Cup a couple times. And, you guys will be there soon.
It's a big deal. Well, and I think it's going to be really cool for Palm Springs to have, they haven't named the team yet, but, it'll be the Palm Springs whatevers.
Yeah.
My personal vote is for the Palm Springs Snowbirds.
Oh, that's great.
I don't think they're going to do that, but if it were
Let's go Snowbirds. Snowbirds, let's go.
I mean, what else is Palm Springs? Like, I don't know. It's probably too cheeky and sarcastic and cynical, but I think it's funny.
The Snowbirds.
It makes me laugh.
I want the T-shirt.
I know, but I think it's going to be cool to have a local team to root for the entire Coachella Valley. I mean, we don't have something like that here, and I think there's a certain regional identity with sports teams that even if you're not into the super intricate play-by-play, it's just cool to have a team to root for.
Yeah.
And I think that's really good for a community.
What do you want to let people know that have never been to Palm Springs? As a reporter, what are some of the things you think will surprise them when they get here, when they're flying in from Cincinnati and Boston and Miami?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I had this conversation with a hotelier recently who opened a boutique hotel down on Palm Canyon, and he was saying, it's an 11-room hotel, really beautiful. It's called Dive Palm Springs, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And we had this conversation about, well, what do you tell people to do when they come here? And he goes, I tell them to do nothing. I tell them to relax. I tell them to, there's no televisions. He says you watch them sort of unwind from their phones and put them down. And that's, to me, the biggest thing about what you can get from this area is that you can truly unplug. If you're here for a stay, if you're here for a week, do your best to just get lost in the place and use the energy of the mountains and the positive vibes of that to just truly unplug, because the quiet, the dark sky, you're not going to have that in a lot of cities in the U.S. So to take advantage of that sort of natural peace as best you can, I think, I encourage people to walk, too. I would encourage people to do the Palm Canyon stroll because there's so many little things to check out, and a lot of local shop owners were more than happy to tell you about the area, their story. I mean, I'm the newcomer here. I've only been here for 6 months, and I'm constantly learning about this community. And the best way to do that is to get out and talk to people, because there's a lot of people here who are very passionate about the valley.
I'm always amazed at what I see here to shop for. I mean, the internet allows us to shop for anything, anywhere. But you walk down the retail areas here of downtown, and you see actual shops full of such unusual items, clothing, art, posters, galleries, where you've got these unusually colorful pieces of art here in Palm Springs. I mean, you go to other galleries, and there's things that can be very stately, even if they're quite contemporary. But you can go in somewhere here, and there's this 12-foot colorful painting of polka dots and giant colors and yellow splotches going up. I mean, it's super modern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have fun here.
Yes.
It's so cool. You're allowed to have fun here. And even in, the somewhat serious world of architecture and art and design where things can get quite serious.
Yes.
People have fun here with it. And there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek art, and there's a lot of just, kind of a cheeky attitude to a lot of it, and it makes it super fun. And speaking of that, of just what things people can buy and stuff, I would encourage people, bring an extra suitcase, especially if you're into vintage shopping and you're into vintage design or you're into retro furnishings. Don't be afraid to come furnish your home here or buy cool things for your friends, because the amount of vintage stuff that's here that's been really well preserved that you can take home and give new life to is astounding and awesome.
It's incredible. When I walk down Palm Canyon, and one of my favorite stores is 20th Century Prints. Have you found that yet? With Bruce?
Yeah, that's a great store.
So Bruce Emerton, I'm going to give a shameless plug here because I like him so much. Bruce has this little, 12 by 12 room in there, and it's all original publications, magazines, and books from the mid-century era. He's just collected over time, and this is a tiny slice of what he actually owns. And you can go in there and you can find the 1954 edition of Life magazine you've been looking for, or you can find autographed copies of things by famous architects, and you can find some of the books they wrote, which are very, very hard to find still, even through some place like Amazon. He's got this in this little 12 by 12 room.
Yeah, it's so cool. And there's a whole crew of people who are collectors and archivists that either open up shops like Bruce or they hit up the markets. Once a month, there's the Palm Springs Vintage Market. Thursday's Village Fest, and you'll have collectors.
That's a street fair, the Village Fest.
Yeah. It's a really good time. It's always fun to swing by. And you have people who this was their personal collection. It was their passion to collect these things. And then they're like, wait, I have so much stuff. So I start selling it.
Yeah.
And that's, the collector's journey. But there's such a great crew of people in that world here. And they're so happy and passionate about what they do. And for me, as someone who's reporting in this town and wants to tell stories about it, I really just love talking to them about why they do it.
Well, Melissa, I'm so glad you dropped by here at our swanky Hotel Skylark.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
George was chatting with Melissa Daniels of the Desert Sun. And now let's pause for a moment of reflection from Nietzsche.
Beauty, love, durability, designed to last for years to come, bringing you peace and tranquility. You feel relaxed, knowing your house can easily achieve any exterior look and any color. Wood, concrete. Your house loves feeling this good. And you love feeling this good. Nietzsche, 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 Nietzsche. Say it with me. Nietzsche. Advanced engineering. Nietzsche, Nietzsche. Durability, textures, finishes, and colors. Visit Nietzsche.com/USModernist. Nietzsche, Nietzsche, Nietzsche. That's NICH. Wait for it. A look you'll love. Nietzsche.
Elizabeth Daniels, no relation to Melissa, who we just heard from, is a professional photographer with, surprise, a passion for all things modernism. Elizabeth has shot some of the most iconic houses in L.A. and Palm Springs, and it doesn't hurt that she lives in Pacific Palisades, home to some of the best houses in the pantheon of modernism. Right down the street are a few Ray Cappy houses, including Ray's own house. Pauline O'Connor writes for L.A. Curbed, the real estate blog where she contributes to the rent check feature. She also has a special relationship to tomatoes. And if you want to impress her, folks, just send her a handwritten note. Pauline and Elizabeth are good friends, and our George Smart sat down with them poolside during this past Modernism week.
So I'm going to start with you, Pauline.
All right.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some cards. And I'd like you to just read the cards for me as we go along. These are some handwritten notes.
Hello, Pauline. It's so great to meet you. I'm such a huge fan of you on Curbed. The art of handwritten notes is rather lost, don't you think? Especially on mid-century postcards. I do think. If you're thinking about taking a photo of these, that will be easy, because I will give them to you. Ready for your first question? Yes. Tell me about the tomato butt curse. You really have done your research.
Tell me, Paula, the tomato butt curse.
All right. Well, about 15 years ago, I started noticing that whenever I ordered something in a restaurant or a deli that had tomatoes, I would always get served the ass of the tomato.
Yeah.
Like the end that you throw away when you're making your own sandwich. And it was just uncanny every time. So I started documenting them. And one time my husband and I went to a place in LA called Cassell's.
Cassell's, okay.
And we both ordered, they're famous for their burgers. We both ordered burgers. He saw mine being made, and he actually stopped the person and asked for a new tomato because he saw that I was getting the tomato butt.
This was a tomato intervention?
Yes, it was a tomato intervention. That's why I married him. But eventually, though, I stopped thinking of it as a curse, and I think of it as an exchange, because on the flip side, I also have really good parking luck. Like,
you have parking karma.
I have parking karma, and so I feel that now when I see a tomato butt, then it means that I will get good parking.
Oh, okay.
So I've turned it into a positive.
So this is the foreshadowing of parking yet to come.
Well, it's a pretty constant thing where I am almost always good to get a spot.
Okay. So maybe they're not related. It could be two separate powers?
Yes, but I've just somehow, you know how superstitious thinking works.
Yes, magical thinking.
Although I don't document the parking spots that I get.
Okay, why not?
Because they're not as visually interesting.
I would think in LA people would love to see some, good parking karma.
Yes, or maybe they would be mad about it. But we call it a Kojak.
Okay.
After the TV show where the eponymous and titular detective would always just pull right up to wherever he was going and run inside.
This was Kojak Telly Savalas?
Kojak, yes.
It goes back a ways.
I didn't invent it. My friend John Heck is the one who...
He was the guy with the lollipop, right?
Who Loves You, Baby, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and he was trying to stop smoking because he had the lollipop all the time.
Is that what he was?
That was why the lollipop came along.
Oh. Anyway, he had good parking luck as well.
Now, you have to park quite a lot, don't you, in your job when you're running around reporting on all this great real estate?
Yes, although I do most of it from my home office. So, but yes, I do have to drive around quite a bit.
How did you start writing about all this?
It related to my own search for a house, which took over a year. And so through that search, it seemed that every time I would look at a house online that I liked, it would also be written about on Curbed. So that's how I started reading Curbed. And I met the then editor, Dakota Smith, at a party. And after we did find a house, I still couldn't stop looking. I just had the fever. When you work for Curbed, people always talk to you about real estate. And so I was talking to Dakota about real estate, and she suggested that I write for them. And so I started writing for them. And that was years and years ago.
And you've written a lot of articles. I mean, how many have there been?
I'd say a couple
300,
thousand.
couple thousand now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot.
It's been a long time.
Now, how did the two of you meet? Elizabeth, how did you meet her?
We met because I was shooting for Curbed, and we would go look at architecture together.
It was The first one was a building in Los Feliz. It's an Art Deco building that has this sort of teal, like terracotta accents. And the story was that, I did air quotes, the story.
We can see your air quotes. Imagine air quotes now, yes.
Was that the phone company was putting in a cell phone receiver tower thing and they were disguising it to look like the facade of the building. So that's what she was shooting.
Oh, did they pull that off, or was it awful?
I think they pulled it off as well as you could.
Yeah,
probably.
They pulled it off as well as you could. That was the building that had the view of Scientology from the roof, right?
Well, any building
true on yeah,
has the Scientology building.
It was a very interesting view of Scientology from the roof, though. It was a different perspective. You could kind of see in. So that's what I remember about that shoot, besides the Art Deco.
Now, Elizabeth, you got into photography pretty early on, I think, with a Leica?
Yeah.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. And where did you get that?
My grandfather.
Your grandfather?
Yeah. Both my grandfathers were photographers, amateur photographers, and one of them shot in the war, in World War II, and the other one was an eye, ear, nose, and throat doctor and shot with a Bolex and a Leica, and he gave me his M3 when I was 11 or 12, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
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 And you never looked back after that?
Never looked back. I'm lucky.
And what were some of the things you shot first that you really found a resonance to as a young person?
You know, I went on a school trip to Russia, and I shot this one picture of a soldier in the snow, and the snow is sort of hitting the lens, so the picture looks like it has huge sort of spots on it that are all different sizes, what happens when you shoot snow often. And that picture was sort of the beginning for me, because I felt like I really got something, like a mood.
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I shot the picture. And I was sort of separated from the group at that point. And I thought, oh my God, this is like an emotional, it's a way to express emotion. So it's kind of like a tool as opposed to just making something for other people to see. It sort of became a way to do that.
Yeah, some photos really do reach out and grab you.
Yeah. I also caught this squirrel jumping from a roof when I was really, really young. I don't know what kind of camera that was, but I was really young. I was like 6 or 7. And I think my other grandfather, the one in the war, gave me just a little brownie camera. Mm-hmm. And I think I got this shot of this. I actually have it framed in my house of the squirrel in midair. And I always thought that was really cool. So I saved that picture in my diaries and stuff. So I guess that's where it started.
And as you became a professional at this, what led you to architecture as a focus for your work?
Well, I was shooting portraits and trying to do fine art photography. I was assistant curating a collection of photographs for Michael Wilson, who had this huge collection from Talbot up, from the inventor of photography up.
Yeah.
And so I was really learning about the history of photography, and I was trying to make these pictures that were sort of resonant with the stuff I was seeing. And that was not working as a career. And so I, for years, thought I'm never going to be able to work as a photographer because it wasn't working for portraits either. I never broke into the magazine stuff, for celebrity stuff or any of that stuff. I never broke in. And then I went to school with Lockhart Steele, who owned Curbed.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, we need a photographer to shoot restaurants. And so I started shooting restaurants. And then I shot a restaurant or two a day for years, for 6 years or more than that, actually. And that sort of led me to shoot for Curbed and also Racked. So it was Eater, Racked, and Curbed.
Okay.
And so I was shooting for all three of them every day. And so the restaurant interiors led me to the architecture, and then I fell in love with the architecture, and then that was it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
She lives in a very architecturally rich neighborhood.
Yes, she does. Absolutely.
I'm very lucky. Yeah.
It's fabulous up there.
It is fabulous up there. It is.
Elizabeth took me around her neighborhood. We were walking around by Ray Cappy's house and a few others by Ray.
It's really special there.
Yeah, it's just stunning.
Very
particularly,
lucky.
When the light gets right in the afternoon.
Yeah, you caught it just right.
Yeah.
You even went to Lee's house in the back there, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I must say about Elizabeth that she's immaculately organized. She showed me her organization closet, which is It's just like a data center, really.
You can't find anything unless you're organized.
Right. I know, but not everybody adheres to that maxim, I think.
Well, because I shot so much with Eater, because I was shooting so many restaurants, if I was not organized, there's no way I would ever have been able to find anything. So I was forced to be organized. You're kind of organized, no?
In my own disorganized way. Yes. There's a method to my madness sometimes.
Parking camera, I think, is still good, though. That's a good card to have.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is.
We're here in Palm Springs on an unusually beautiful day, and you guys have been wandering around seeing things. You were at our party last night at the Kirk Douglas Estate, which was great. Thank you for coming to that.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was lovely.
What's the allure for you here in Palm Springs? What do you like most about the area?
I just love how it's only an hour and a half from LA, but it feels so totally different. Like the air is different. It's so easy to get around. The palm trees, obviously, the mountains, they look close enough to touch. It's just that sculptural kind of thing. And sometimes you see road runners, or I saw a burrowing owl once. That was very exciting. Things you don't see and of course the houses. The very first time that I came here, I was telling Elizabeth yesterday on the drive out, is in 2004. I still lived in New York at the time, and I was coming out. I worked for a music magazine. I was coming out to cover Coachella, and one of my friends got invited to a party at the Elrod Lautner.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went, and the instructions said, go to this Ralph's parking lot, find the shuttle bus, get on the shuttle bus, and it'll take you to the party. And there was no driver on the bus, so we sat in this bus for over an hour. And I met Barbara Bester was also on the bus. That's my first time I met her. And another architect named Ben Ball was with her. And some people got impatient and they left the bus. And we were thinking that we were about to give up, but then finally the bus driver took us to the house, and it blew our minds. We were handed bathing suits and flip-flops, and we were allowed to get in the pool. And
wow.
We did not make it to
Did bikini-clad assassins
day.
come out too and try to kill you? Because that's part of the experience.
Well, they might have later. We probably left before that happened, but anyway, we didn't make it to the concert that night. We just stayed at this party as long as we could.
I sure would.
Yeah, me too.
If I was swimming in the Elrod house.
Yeah, so it made quite an impact. And also, me and my husband and a bunch of our friends would rent a beautiful house every, Christmas to New Year's. You get a different house, different style. The first one was Moroccan style. And, the next one
as
was
faux Moroccan as we can get here, yeah.
And I've stayed in one of the Swiss Misses in Vista, Las Palmas, and you can dip into a different version of whatever the leisure architecture rules here.
Elizabeth, one of your early influences was the Guggenheim, right?
Yeah, I love Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being in Palm Springs must be like super good for you, all this architecture here.
Yeah, Palm Springs is amazing for me because my father tells stories of when he was little and used to drive out from LA. It used to take a lot longer, and he used to spend time out here when he was very young. So I always feel connected to it in that way. Like I feel like I have history here. Like my grandparents spent time here, which was great. But for me, like there's a few houses here that I feel so connected with because I was able to spend some time in them and alone. When I'm alone in a house for a long period of time, I feel like connected to it. Mm-hmm. So I have my sort of landmarks. Like the way that I see Palm Springs on a map is through just a few houses that I've been, been lucky enough to be inside.
What houses have you shot out here?
Twin Palms.
Twin Palms, yeah. The Sinatra House.
The Sinatra House. And then the Hope House. I got to shoot that when it was before, during, and after construction, which was great.
And is this the most recent renovation?
Yeah, the most recent renovation.
Good.
That house is incredible. That house is mind-blowing. The size of it is amazing, but what he did there, I guess that it feels sort of like, to me, like it's otherworldly. Like it really has kind of a UFO thing going on there. If the UFOs were going to land, this is probably where they would. It seems like a welcoming station. If exactly what I mean.
When. It's when, right?
Or like maybe they already have. Who knows? But yeah. Pauline, was I told that the L-Rod actually fits inside the Hope House? Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But those two houses, I have not yet been able to have access to the L-Rod, which is another dream of mine. But I used to come here and look up longingly into the hill at the Hope House and be like, oh my God, I wonder if I'm ever going to get up there and be able to see that. And I've been so lucky to be able to spend some time up there. And that place is insane. That's one of the most amazing places I've ever shot. So I'm lucky. I have to thank Tim Gleason for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been amazing. And then there are a few other places here. Of course, I love the Kaufman House, but I haven't really spent time there that much. I'm trying to, oh, you know what? I actually really love Two Bunch Palms. Mm-hmm. I've been going there for a long time.
That spa in Desert Hot Springs?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool place.
It is, and it's got some history. So Pauline will tell you about the history of Two Bunch Palms.
Oh, I can't. I've never been, but they've recently redid it, did they not?
They did, but there's there's sort of a gangster history that goes with it.
Yeah, I was there 2 years ago.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. Great visit. All those
visit.
different pools and...
Yeah, it's wild.
I just know it from The Player.
Yes, that's
really my reference point.
Which is not a bad reference.
Is the market for real estate out here going up?
I would say that it's like it is in LA, where the good places get snapped up quickly, and the prices seem to be, they're still cheaper than LA. You could still get a 4-bedroom house for $1 million or something. But I have a friend who's looking to buy, and we've been looking at places, and the good places are not lingering on the market. He's looking at a house designed by Bill Doty, the movie star Loretta Young's old house.
Oh, right, sure.
That's in Deepwell.
She was a great ingenue in her day.
Yes. And she had a TV show where she would always make these grand entrances, and so her house has a really grand entrance.
Wasn't she the mom in something, too, in a TV show?
I think so, yeah.
Like one of those Dennis... It wasn't Dennis the Menace, because that was Craig Elwood's wife at the time, who was Gloria Henry, played that role. But there was another kind of 50s show where the mom stayed at home and took care of things, and the husband came home at 5 o'clock, took his shoes off, and wanted a martini. There were a bunch of those shows.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Are you looking it up?
I was looking it up, but I can't. I just see the Loretta Young show. I'm not finding.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Is that it?
I think that was it, yeah.
There's a supercut of her making these extravagant entrances. Bookmark it.
Okay.
Now, I know, Elizabeth, that you have this fabulous collection of typewriters. How did that start out? And you do, too. You have some typewriters?
I sure do.
Yeah, how many do you have?
6.
6 typewriters, and you have...
I haven't counted lately.
I want to say at least 20.
Yeah, I feel like I might be up there.
Yeah. Double digits for sure.
I think I'm in double digits, yeah.
So how did this typewriter thing get going for each of you?
The feeling of typing on a typewriter is satisfying. They're beautiful machines, and I like to get them in different colors. So it's just so cool that they try to make them visually interesting as well as useful. And I like the way they look and sound and feel. But it's hard to find typewriter reconditioners these days. There's not a lot of people who do it.
No.
And it costs a fortune.
And supplies, too. And how about you, Elizabeth?
I got it at a garage sale, my first one in college, and Smith Corona, and I used it all the time. I used to write on it all the time, and I love it. I love it, just like Pauline said, I love the sound of it, the feel of it, everything. There's something about banging out words that is different than writing them or different from being on a computer. It's almost like, in a way, it's like printing a picture.
Yeah.
This sort of thing. I actually did this project one time just for myself. I guess you wouldn't call it a project, but I was typing on negatives and then blowing them up and making pictures out of them. And I just feel like there's something about that, like making that mark, that's amazing. And I don't know. They're all different colors is kind of cool too.
It's just satisfying, like how it's satisfying to pop bubble wrap or whatever.
Yes.
It's satisfying to type on a good typewriter.
But also the design, Olivetti and all of that stuff. Like I just got a Valentine and I was after that for years. And I got to tell you, like their showrooms are incredible. Like,
the Olivetti showrooms?
Yeah.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean, just the design, the factories that they had, I'm really
And I believe
impressed.
this is right. They tried to get in early on the PC craze in the 80s because they could see that was the future and some of the typewriters were going to go away. And for some reason, they never quite got up very far at all. But there were Olivetti computers at one point.
Cool.
Yeah. So we'll have to find some of those at yard sales
Yeah.
and send them your way.
Yeah, that would be good.
Because I seem to recall that they were stylized in a very unique way that the public hadn't quite caught on to yet. The public wanted more boxy kinds of computers because that's the look they were used to from seeing them on TV. They didn't realize you could have design in a computer the way they had realized you could have design in a computer like with the IBM Selectric, which I believe came out of Elliott Noyes. And so this is just part of that evolution.
Right. Well,
Leave it to the Italians, though.
yeah, I mean, they're amazing. It's kind of like Billy Haynes, like built-in furniture. Like, it's kind of like that whole sort of stylized thing that in built-ins and houses, like Lautner used to do. I feel like Olivetti had this sort of way of doing things, incorporating the typewriter with spaces in design that was really unique. And I don't know, those machines are so beautiful. They're like art pieces. I don't know. They're like old cameras in a way because they can still function.
Yes.
You know?
This has been delightful. Thank you so much for joining me out here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, George.
Delightful.
So how can people reach you if they want to talk about typewriters or photography or real estate or Curbed or anything?
If they go to Curbed and my byline and click on it,
Okay.
that will get to me, yes.
And my website, which I haven't updated for quite a while, has a link to my email on that, but usually through Instagram.
Okay. And what's your Instagram account?
Elizabeth Daniels at 01.
Elizabeth Daniels 01.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been great. This is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, George.
That was George with Elizabeth Daniels and Pauline O'Connor. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned as we bring more shows from 2020's Modernism Week in Palm Springs. If you want to hang out with us at the swanky U.S. Modernist compound at Modernism Week next year, February 2021, just email george@usmodernist.org. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by Nichiha.com/US Modernist and by Angela Roll, your special agent for Modernist Houses, 919-995-0550. Okay, George, it's your turn.
Visit USModernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover documentation on now 7,500 significant modernist houses, and access 3 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studio in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song was performed by me and Robinson Earl. Carrie Cesarino researches guests while juggling 2 children, a bowling ball, a candle, and a chainsaw, all while salsa dancing with husband Adam. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm George Smart, and as the summer winds die down, I recall the cool, magical nights we spend each year at Modernism Week, sometimes at Frank Sinatra's pool in Palm Springs. We'll be back soon with another I Get a Kick Out of You, pocket full of miracles, for a once-in-my-life edition of U.S. Modernist Radio. Cheers.
Skull.